Hey, welcome back to the Astrology of Things. I'm your host and certified astrologer, Sheena, and today is February 18th, 2026, and it's 10:43 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, I'm back to finish out this Sun Through the House series in Synastry. I started this series back, I think, 3 years ago, so I can't believe all this time has passed. And I was going through my videos to just see what series I needed to finish up because I wanted to kind of close these loops. So I'm here with the sixth house overlay interpretation. So yeah, let's talk about what that means when one person's sun overlays another person's sixth house in relationship astrology. So in relationship astrology, we don't just want to think about relationship astrology in terms of romance. Relationships expand out to familial relationships, platonic, business relationships, and even human-animal relationships. So for this interpretation, I just want to note that this is a general interpretation, and to really fully understand the nuances of how synastry works between two individuals, you have to really consider first each individual's natal chart. You have to understand their natal placements, how their planets aspect one another, and you have to understand the dignity and debility of those planets in their natal chart. So for example, in the case of the sun, you'll have to look at how that person's sun behaves in the natal chart. So the sun could be at home in Leo, or the sun could be in its fall over in Libra, and that kind of changes the power and how the sun behaves. But we're not gonna dig that deep into it today. But I do have just an example of two people's charts, made up charts, that we could use to kind of think about this overlay. So here we have person A. They were born February 3rd, 1989, and they're Scorpio rising. And so this is the person who we're going to use as the inner ring in the synastry chart. So we're going to be looking at their sixth house. And then we have person B, born on April 18th, 1994. They're Capricorn rising, and you can see that their sun is over here in Aries. With this, you can see sun in Aries. That means the sun is actually overpowered. So this could represent someone who's very, very strong-willed, has a very big ego, someone who is proud of their independence, their individuality, and they could also just be a very radical type of person. But so yeah, you could just think about a sun in Aries and think about them as an individual before you think about how this person interacts with person A. So in synastry, we overlay the charts. And so again, the inner ring here is person A, and the outer ring is person B. And so I just want to remove all of the noise and focus on in this video. So to understand the synastry between these two people, we first have to understand the meaning of the sixth house. And so in the sixth house in our natal charts, that house deals with servitude, volunteerism, hospitality. It represents your day-to-day routines and activities. This house also represents small pets, your vices, or I'll consider them character flaws, or parts of ourselves that create an imbalance within us or that lead us to losing control of our independence. And lastly, I also see this house associated with hygiene and sickness. And then the next part of this, we have to understand the sun. So, what does the sun mean in a chart? Well, the sun represents a person's outward actions, it's their ego, the goals that they strive for. It represents their achievements, their pride, what they focus their attention on, how they perform. And again, as I mentioned earlier, despite this general meaning of the sun, everybody's sun behaves differently depending on the context in which the sun is in an individual's natal chart. So earlier I just talked about briefly what sun in Aries could mean for a person. So when one person's sun overlays the sixth house here, you get someone whose actions, outward expressions, their attention, they activate the servitude, the hospitality, the daily routines and regimens and flaws of the house person. So through the sun person's actions or lack thereof, they reveal to the house person ways in which they can serve, or they show the house person how they can provide hospitality for the public domain or to individuals or businesses. The sun person will reveal ways in which they can improve or refine their daily routines or health regimens. And this person can also be the sun person can be one who develops this area, whether that's directly or indirectly through their actions. And as I mentioned, the sixth house is a weak house. So it's a house that, one, it's a cadent house, but two, this house is in conjunct to the first house. And in conjunction is one of the major aspects, but it's considered to be a weak aspect where, the houses are essentially making an adverse aspect with one another. So an example of this being a weak house, I like using analogies. So think of a 5-legged chair where one of the legs is just a tad bit shorter than the other legs. And so this leg creates an imbalance or instability in the chair's structure. And so that's how I see the sixth house in relation to people in their individual natal charts. And so the sun person, when interacting with the house person, they would be the individual who either makes the imbalance worse, or they could show up and provide a solution or ways to make the imbalance better or improved. So, what's an example of someone with their sun overlaying the sixth house? So, let's say, for instance, the sun person is an actual physical trainer or some type of coach. And they, or maybe, they're not a trainer or a coach, but they kind of appear in the light of a trainer or coach based on how they're influencing that sixth house person. So this trainer or coach, they would help the house person cultivate the weekend sixth house. So they could coach the person on how to develop better routines and regimens around their health, around their work, around their home even. And so the sun person or this coach slash trainer person, they could bring bring opportunities for you to get involved with community service or other types of voluntary work where the house person is donating their resources to kind of a greater cause. So whether that be they're donating their time, their money, or their skills. Or the sun person can highlight ways in which the house person can use their resources in more fruitful and creative manners. So on the downside, the sun person could be someone who's a contributing factor to further weakening that sixth house. So through the sun person's actions, they may reactivate or activate vices or unhealthy choices that the house person makes on a daily basis. So for example, let's say the sun person is a smoker and they smoke whenever they're around the house person, and the sun person is always bringing up topics surrounding smoking. And if the house person was a former smoker, of course the actions of this sun person is going to revive or potentially trigger these old smoking habits and cravings that the house person overcame or seemingly overcame. Or in another case, maybe the sun person could be a bit overbearing, intrusive, or controlling. And they may have a bit too much to say, too much of an opinion, or they might be too curious about the daily activities and happenings of the house person. And maybe they're just too involved or trying to be too involved in how the house person is using their resources in support of being hospitable and being of service to others. And then lastly, this overlay could represent someone who directly needs that servitude and hospitality. So, for example, maybe this is a grandparent who isn't in the best of health and they need support from the house person to, to be able to function essentially. Or the sun person could come in the form of a pet. Pets, they require your care and hospitality for their livelihood. So there's a lot of different ways that this overlay could play out, but hopefully that gives you a general idea of how this synastry works or could work between two individuals. So let me know in the comments if this resonated with your experiences, and feel free to share those stories in the comments so others can learn from firsthand experience. I think understanding firsthand experiences in relation to astrology really helps to bring astrology alive and introduce color and meaning into, this two-dimensional diagram. It kind of brings it to life. So I hope to do a better job of that when I'm talking about astrology. So I will see you guys in the next video.